Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Colonized Minds, the podcast. This is Elizabeth Guzman.
And this is Luke Givens.
And yesterday, we mentioned that we were going to have an interviewee on our show for today, and I think we are not going to disappoint, right, Luke?
No, not at all. The folks have been waiting to hear from her.
So without further ado, today we have Dr. Karen Edwards on our show, and if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, who are you, where are you from, and how did you get here?
I am Karen Edwards. I'm the campus president for PCC Cascade. I've been in my position for 2 years now, celebrating my second anniversary this month. Yes, I survived 2 years. Came to Portland from Connecticut. I was 15 years as the Chief Student Affairs Officer at a community college there, and decided well, I'd been looking for a college or a campus presidency for a while and just putting applications in to see what would take, and really wanted to stay on the East Coast because that's where all family is. But the one where I seemed to get most traction was here in Portland, Oregon. Both of my children are grown, and my husband and I are kind of settled in our relationship. And so we thought, well, why not give it a try? Let's step out. If you're going to do it, you got to do it. Better do it now because the opportunity might not come back around. So yeah, this was really like a big jump for us, a big faith walk, coming to Portland, not having any family here or really knowing anybody or even knowing much about the West Coast. My experience on the West Coast was maybe just to attend a conference in California, maybe twice, 3 times, but other than that, nothing about the West Coast. Yeah, so, there's the stereotype of the West Coast kind of being kind of chill, kind of mellow. And then, so I'm born and raised in New York City, and so that's quite the opposite of mellow and chill. And I didn't really know the extreme difference that I would find here. And so I wish people had told me, Karen, you're going to have to turn it down a little bit before you arrive, because I came like, come on, let's go, let's run. And people is like, yeah, we'll catch up with you. Indeed. There's no need to hurry. I joke, and it's not all a joke, but I've yet to encounter a sense of urgency, here. And so wish I had known that I didn't have to, move so fast, only to slow down a little bit. Yeah. People did, the folks that I did talk to, question, are there any people of color there? You're going to be kind of lonely. What's happening on the social front for you? So I did more research on that and kind of knew what to expect. But again, getting here was a different story, and a little bit pleasantly surprised. I know that, we're not Mecca. Not by far, but I can say maybe that there's a little critical mass right here, in Portland and in the metro Portland area, so that you're not necessarily bumping into the same people all the time. That got a good handle on who's here.
And it's relative.
Yes. So kind of knew that. What I do really like about Portland, certainly is the landscape. Not Portland, just Portland, but Oregon, the landscape. So having the opportunity to drive out into the mountains and, the coast and all that, it's really beautiful country here. And that's not something, that I'm used to. So, I wish I had known that too.
So how has Cascade treated you so far, or how would you describe your experience?
I really, really, really appreciate where we're located and the work that we do here at Cascade, at PCC, but Cascade in particular. I'm drawn to an urban environment, and so this is different kind of urban for me, being in the city and not, being so separated from, the rest of the community. I like that feeling. Thought that I was coming into more of a diverse neighborhood here, but really the extent of gentrification has changed this community so much. So it's not necessarily what I thought I was coming into, but still appreciate it. I feel really fortunate to work with the people that I have to work with here. Many or most are really dedicated to the work and understand the student needs. And so I appreciate that. It's not about, trying to make people do their job. And I've been in places where that was required, and it really isn't fun to do that. So not having that issue to deal with here is great. I appreciate the students here too. The level of activism on the part of students, it's wonderful, except that was kind of eye-opening for me as well. So, we used to be so concerned about the level of apathy among our student population. And so apathetic they're not. If there's an issue, if there's a cause, they're on it. And so I appreciate that. And, and it's about not looking out just for themselves, but for others. So that's kind of who I am as well. Luke, my dream for this campus is to really be really connected with the community. And I want so desperately to maintain the history of this neighborhood and to bring some folks who have been displaced from this neighborhood, to be able to bring them back and to have them enjoy, all that we have to offer here at Cascade. And so on a regular, I'm thinking about how to make that happen. I also just want to make sure that both our students and the faculty and staff, have a sense of community among ourselves, that, we're not so siloed or so separated within ourselves that, we can still function, as one unit. And that's important to me. So that's where I'm working to get to. But fortunately, it's not a hard job to do. Mm-hmm. Busy work, but not, yes, always got something to do. Indeed.
Why would you say you're so heavily focused on equity and inclusion?
My life experiences, I guess, mostly. I had the opportunity in high school. So you know that I grew up in the Bronx. And if you know anything about the South Bronx, it's a pretty depressed area. And it was then and still is. But I had the opportunity to go to a private high school in Midtown Manhattan. And it was through that experience that, I realized how much, I didn't have access to. And so once my eyes were open to that, I was like, well, I want it, and I want everybody else to be able to have that too. It was more than just about getting access to a good education. I mean, there were things like who gets to go on vacation and who gets to see and explore all of these different things that kids in the Bronx could not do. And once I had the opportunity to do it, I was like, well, I want them to have it too. And so I've kind of committed myself to try and break down barriers that prohibited people of color and poor people, low income, whatever, from having access to whatever it is that's out there. That there shouldn't be those kind of barriers. And so I really work hard to try and do that. There's a price to pay for it, though.
How so?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's tough being the only one or the first one, or, having to kind of go through that on your own with not a whole bunch of support. There were so many times I felt that I was tolerated and not necessarily accepted. Yeah, there's a price to pay for that. And your social network is also shaped differently, Elizabeth. Your people, your friends and your family, like you're acting funny, you're acting different, and then you go to the other side and you're definitely not one of us. So like finding that place, where do you exactly fit in? But I think that there are more people who are having this experience or having this opportunity. And so we can shape things differently now, like not be the only one or be the trailblazer or whatever, that make this the norm.
So now, given that you're a college president, but you're also a woman and a person of color, do you feel like you still have some of those same experiences?
I do. And so there are some meetings still that I attend where you're the only person of color. And so, when those issues of whatever come up, how, people kind of look to you for, what's your opinion, or, right, Karen, wanting you to co-sign with them. Yeah. It's like whether you agree with it or not. I think I am the only woman, I'm the only person of color who's a college president in the state of Oregon. And so I know that that's true on the community college level, and I believe it may be at the 4-year level as well. I don't think that there's another person of color. And so, it's a small circle. And, you don't always want to be representing. You just want to be sometimes and not be the odd person out. So yes, even at this level. And I remember there was an incident I worked at a college in New York, and my former boss then, he got kicked in the head by his horse. I'm not sure what he was doing to the horse, but and so he had two black eyes, right? And he was walking around with sunglasses, and I told him, I was like, I know what it feels like to be the only one, right? To be the only person who's, and you stand out and you're the only one in this room with glasses on, so that you don't have that feeling, I'm going to put on some dark glasses and wear them too. But, and so they thought it was kind of a joke, but I was like, no, for real. Yeah. I know what it's like to be the only one. It's a lonely feeling many times, and so let me not let you be lonely. Wow. And put your glasses on. Well, then everybody wanted to wear dark glasses. Yeah, because they kind of took it a different way, which was fine, but I was truly making a point. Yeah, that being the only one isn't necessarily a good feeling. Sometimes I'm vocal and I will call out like, but what about, or what about, reminding folks that, there's more than just you all that we need to think about. And that's even sometimes just talking the difference between students and, faculty, staff. Like you're looking at things from your perspective and what feels good or makes sense to you. But we're supposed to be here to serve a different population. So oftentimes I'll remind people that it ain't always about you. I take a little bit of pleasure in that. And then other times, the atmosphere is just kind of, I can't participate, so I'll just listen.
So everybody has their own interpretation, but what do you think the role of a multicultural center is?
Mm-hmm. So I will tell you, I don't think that it is specific to just one group or one particular, any set of people. Multicultural as in, many cultures. And so, if you do something for whatever the activity is, I think that it's supposed to be able to educate and elevate people's knowledge of the world around them, of different cultures, of, ways of being, ways of thinking. And I do think that there's a level of support that the Multicultural Center could and should provide to students who are not part of the dominant culture. But most importantly, I think it's about educating, Luke, and exposing people to differences and allowing them to recognize that, there is a dominant culture, but there are other very important cultures and things that come into play that we ought to be mindful of and that we ought to use on a regular basis throughout our work, throughout the entire college. So it's not just for activities. It's not just for classroom teaching. I mean, just for everything that we do, that I want people to have a framework that says, I can pull from this, I can pull from that, I can pull from other things. Yeah. And my personal take is too, while most may focus on providing support services to students, I think the Multicultural Center is equally equipped and should be also providing the same kind of support to faculty and staff.
So let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest issue or challenge for higher ed?
There's a couple, Luke, because, as you read, and we've been reading for years now, like, what's the real value of an education? And, is it liberal arts versus, training somebody for a specific job? And why does it cost so darn much to go to college? So really, the cost of college and college affordability and student debt are all big challenges that we have to face. I think also for us, those we try to maintain like this traditional path that you can, and the way you attain education. But, online learning blew that out of the water. Yeah. So, and it's more so about, what you need and when do you need it, and we'll provide it, as opposed to you have to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday from, whatever, right? This or this lockstep thing. And who's to say that what you said is, constitute a good degree? If I don't want that, if I want to take some of this, that, and the other, there are places who will do that. So I think that we need to be careful, Luke, that we don't become obsolete. And so people don't want to necessarily look at higher ed like as a business, but it's very consumer driven. Yeah. And the biggest thing, I think, the difference between like corporate and higher ed is tenure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they just don't get that.
Yeah.
But for higher ed, looking at the changing demographics, being nimble, being able to, which for us, how long does it take to get a program approved? I mean, things our process is kind of slow and careful. I will say that it's not just long but people are very careful and everybody has this opportunity to contribute, which is nice, but things are changing. Things are changing and we may not be able to keep up with the changing demands if we stay the way we are. Affordability and accountability that, okay, if students are paying this much money to get a degree, they're expecting something on the other side of that, like a job that's gonna, help me pay off some of this debt. So many students now who are graduating go back home to live with their parents. That's like a new thing. And so, for us, probably that was maybe unheard of. If you had to, I don't care where you had to go, but you weren't going back home.
Absolutely. And it was seen as a failure.
I'm trying to say, and certainly not for years either. You might, if you find yourself in a jam, certainly that's one thing. But it was never the expectation that you were going to go home. Now it's kind of the norm.
It is.
Like, I'm going to live with my parents for 5 years and then, see what happens. Well,
Well, no, actually, I get what you mean. I mean, I was one of those folks who went to college, and everyone told me when I was growing up, go to college, go to college. Many of them had not been to college, but they believed, and so they told me that all you have to do is go to college, and there's going to be someone on the back end waiting to offer you a job. And what I realized very quickly after I graduated was that wasn't the case. And I think, there may have been a point in time where that was true, but we have an entire generation of students who are coming to college with this expectation that they're going to find a job, and that's not the case. And so it's not through any fault of their own. It's not through anything that they did or didn't do in that classroom. It's because they're inheriting an economy where that's just not a possibility.
It is true, because I had that same, I thought that they were going to be lined up waiting for me too, with my bachelor's degree in psychology. Okay?
Psychology, now
right.
better.
Right. Nobody was waiting for me. Nobody was waiting, but that was still, that people thought that that's the way, you just needed to go to college and all these doors were going to open. And so with that too, another issue for higher ed, I think, and we're calling it at the community college level, guided pathways, like not having students just take a smorgasbord of, classes and kind of float in and out, and never really complete a degree. Now it's like you got 4 choices, A, B, C, D, and, there might be some, little offshoots from there, but you don't get to choose. I think they refer to it as the cafeteria model, where you just kind of go and get some of this and that. Yeah, right. But, for us, for community colleges, too many students start and don't finish. And unfortunately, some, the whole debt thing, why would you be, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in debt without a degree, without an associate's degree? So, I mean, that's important for us to look at, and certainly making college more affordable in whatever ways we can, I think is important. And a particular important point for me is closing the achievement gap. I hate that disparity is still exists, and worse, that is growing.
So for folks that might not know, could you explain to us what is the achievement gap?
Well, there's a difference between who's accessing education and who's being successful in it. And predominantly low-income students of color are not, they're not even finishing high school at the same level. And so there's a gap between those students who are more privileged are getting more privileged, and those who have less access are even getting lesser. So that gap is widening between the have and have-nots. Yeah. Elizabeth, is a better way maybe to explain it. Mm-hmm. And that's dangerous for us.
Absolutely.
because there's a lot more who don't have it, and that's the problem. Yeah, but higher ed, I truly believe, has a role in helping to fix that, to make that right.
So throughout the show, you've mentioned a couple of different goals and initiatives you really want to accomplish while you're a college president here at Cascade. Is there anything you feel like you can't do?
What would that be, Elizabeth? I have to give that some thought. I don't know that, like, so I may not be able to do it single-handedly, but I kind of go into things like I'm going to figure out a way. And so even if I'm not the one to do it, I'm going to make sure I get to the one who can do it. Yeah, just trying to be resourceful that way. It's not always easy, and I understand politics, and I understand how we operate things. You kind of got to go around a few times before. But I'm patient, and I'm confident that we'll see it to fruition. That's my hope, anyway.
So, as a campus, as a district, but more specifically as a campus, do you think we're moving in the right direction?
In some ways, yes. So I do think, again, the level of commitment to students, I think, is great. And I think that we are, one of the things I think is going to be important is how we move forward in the new positions with the Vice President of Academic Affairs and the Vice President of Student Affairs. And so I think that there truly is an opportunity to change how we've been doing things. And so PCC touts itself, we're the largest institution of higher ed in the state of Oregon, and we're, big and we're strong and we're complicated. But if you look at our numbers, we're not much better than other community colleges in terms of student success. In terms of some of the other issues with, the disparities between student achievement and things like that, and cost as well. And so the fact that we're talking about it and trying to figure out ways to make it better, then I'm glad about that. We're not, just like that's somebody else's problem, not acknowledging, self-reflection is so important, even as an institution. And, for us to just always think that, we're the biggest institution in higher ed and we're big and complicated and whatever, you can lose sight of who you really are if you stay there. And so I'm glad that there are enough people who are willing to look inward and say, we can do better at that, and we can do better at that. And I think our Title III grant was very important, particularly around financial aid issues, and really made some significant strides in improving the process and trying to minimize the default rate and those kind of things, which is important. We're looking more at, online instruction. Again, and I think this is important for Cascade in particular. We serve probably, I think of the 4 campuses, we probably have a slightly older student population, and we have a more representation of the CTE programs. And so those are the students who are, really, when the economy goes up and down, those are the students who are most impacted by that. But how about we make a way where they can continue to study even while they're working? When they're laid off, they probably come to school full time, and try and get retraining or whatever. But don't make them stop attending school because, the economy got better and they got a job. Do some kind of a flexible learning where they can continue. If they can't show up Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 10, maybe they'll be available at 9 o'clock at night to do, their online class, right? I'm thinking there's options for us that we need to continue to explore. Another area where I think we're moving in the right direction, we know that advising is probably one of the most critical aspects of, right? And so, when I walked over here, I see like 8 people waiting for a while, and one of them is, she's been there for a minute. Seriously, she's been there for a minute, because when I came into work, they were there, and I came over here for my meeting a half hour later, or 20 minutes later, and she's still sitting in the lobby. So that's an issue. But advising is important, and we are looking at changing the advising process and even our intake process, looking at multiple measures instead of placing students in developmental courses based on one test, but looking at a bigger picture of who they are. So I think those are things that are moving us in the right direction as well.
It looks like we're running out of time, but before we close the show, I did want to ask if there's anything you're looking forward to this fall semester.
I am looking forward to our new president. I don't know him, and I don't know too much about him, except though I know that he is Japanese, and when he acknowledged that I went to Japan, I went to Japan in the spring. Yes, so I'm going. We're gonna communicate. I'll use all of my culture and knowledge that I learned to make him feel welcome here. Yes, I'm excited to have him. I think that he knows community colleges. He understands and appreciates the mission of it, and so that is just so important. I think that he's coming from D.C., where he was connected to all kind of policymakers and legislators, and so I think that that's a good thing to have. And he comes from a student affairs background, which is also exciting to me. So I'm glad about that. Program-wise, I'm looking, hopefully, that we have some new academic programs coming on board, and I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about a program that we'll do through the Skill Center to help folks who have been incarcerated re-enter, to provide them with some support so that they can, get their education and get a job. That's really important to me as well. So I think it's going to be a good year. I'm hoping it will be my best of the three. So Luke and Elizabeth, you all are great. You are two of the people who make this job really fun and I look forward to coming to work every day. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely feel the same way.
Yeah. So before we get out of here today, just want to make a few announcements. One is that next week, August 14th, that will be next Friday, the Women's Resource Center is going to be hosting a focus group for Asian American women. They are asking for folks to come share their experience, and they're also asking for folks to register for that. So you can register by going to the Women's Resource Center, which is Cascade Student Union, room 301, or by calling at extension 5249, so that's 917-722-5249, or emailing directly to Nancy Ong, that's nancy.ong@pcc.edu. Again, they are asking for folks to pre-register for the focus group, so if you're hearing this and you're interested in participating, definitely contact the WRC so that you can get registered. The other thing I'd like to put in a plug for is on Tuesday, October 18th, Portland Community College is going to be hosting Dr. Sarah Goldrick-Robb. She's going to be talking about her new book, College Costs, Financial Aid, and the Betrayal of the American Dream, Paying the Price. Should be a really interesting conversation. I actually just saw her on The Daily Show this week with Trevor Noah. And in addition to talking about kind of what's wrong with the skyrocketing price of higher education, she also in her book has solutions, which I really, really like. So that is going to be Tuesday, October 18th at 6:30. It's going to be a lecture and book signing in the Moriarty Arts Building, 705 North Killingsworth. Well, if you're familiar with Cascade campus, you know where Moriarty is.
Right. And I think that this one's particularly really important event, both for students and faculty and staff, because it directly impacts everyone on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the last announcement that I'll make, and I won't say it's the most important, but it's the most important to me, is that the Cascade Multicultural Center is selling Blazers tickets for the home opener against the Utah Jazz. We are selling tickets through Monday. So if you are interested in buying our tickets, you can go to www.rosequarter.com/Cascade Multicultural. Go to the site. It looks really, really nice. You can purchase your ticket and use our promo code ADVOCATE, ADVOCATE, ADVOCATE. So if you purchase your tickets by Monday, what is that, October the 8th?
Something around that.
Something like that. If you can purchase it by Monday, a portion of your ticket purchase is going to be used to fund some of our students to attend the alternative spring break trip this year. So again, if you're listening to it, hurry up and get those tickets. If you buy 5 or more, I have a special offer. I'm giving hugs to anyone who buys 5 or more tickets.
And if you know Luke, he does not give hugs away.
That's to let you know how serious I am about this. So at any rate, that's it for today's show. Thank you guys for listening. And this is Luke signing off saying, what if it's true?